This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. Enough is enough. Those are the words of George Floyd's brother. Still, the protests continue along with mounting charges of police brutality. As for defunding the police, even some top Democrats are saying it will only make matters much worse. So what action is the president taking? Jenna Browder has the story.
The White House confirms the president will travel to Dallas today for a roundtable with faith leaders, law enforcement, and small business owners. They'll be talking about police reform and race relations. Thursday's trip comes after President Trump met Wednesday with African-American faith leaders at the White House, and after House hearings Wednesday on police brutality.
George wasn't hurting anyone that day.
Philonise Floyd, George Floyd's brother, testifying about the pain he felt watching his brother die, helpless on the ground while begging for his mother.
He didn't deserve to die over $20. I'm asking you, is that what a black man is worth? $20? This is 2020. Enough is enough. The people marching in the streets are telling you enough is enough.
Democrats and Republicans with the White House are working on police reform measures as some on the left push to defund the police. Facing increasing pressure to weigh in, Joe Biden told CBS News Monday he does not support the idea. Other opponents include Senators Cory Booker and Bernie Sanders. Former NFL player, investment banker, and minister Jack Brewer also took issue with it Wednesday on CBN's Faith Nation.
The communities that need law and order the most are the underserved communities, the mothers that are single, the elderly people who don't have the resources to protect themselves. If you go into the community, right, and you go in and you ask the families in these communities that are underserved, they're going to tell you that they need more police, not less.
Pastor Darrell Scott also warned about the dangers of taking away resources from police departments, pointing to what's happened in cities like Cleveland, where police budgets and presence have been cut.
The murder rates have climbed. The property crime is at record levels. Aggravated robbery statistics are higher. Drug sales, drug use, drug abuse is higher. Drug and alcohol-related motor vehicle accidents are the highest they've ever been.
Brewer says real change starts with faith and family.
And the problems start from fatherlessness. Our father and our family units, particularly in the black community, have been ripped apart. And so what you're seeing now is you're seeing that, you're 5 times more likely to go to prison if you don't have a father in the house. It starts with our family, with Christian values, and stop trying to push out all of the godly principles that our country was founded on. We got to get the fear of God back in our police department, in our communities, in our kids. And I think that's our answer.
In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
In other news, there are now more than 2 million reported COVID-19 cases in the U.S., but good news from the nation's top infectious disease expert.
We could have a vaccine either by the end of this calendar year or in the first few months of 2021.
3 companies selected by the U.S. will begin the 3rd phase of trials this summer, testing their vaccine's effectiveness on up to 90,000 volunteers. Moderna will go first in July, followed by the University of Oxford and AstraZeneca in August, and Johnson & Johnson in September. Experts hope at least one of their vaccines will work against the virus. As the economy recovers from the damage caused by the coronavirus lockdowns, the Federal Reserve is signaling that it's going to help it come back by keeping the key short-term interest rate near zero through the year 2022. The Federal Reserve's goal is to encourage businesses and consumers to borrow money and to help keep them spending and strengthen the economy.
The CARES Act and other legislation provide direct help to people and businesses and communities. This direct support can make a critical difference, not just in helping families and businesses in a time of need, but also in limiting long-lasting damage to our economy. We will continue to use these powers forcefully, proactively, and aggressively until we're confident that we are solidly on the road to recovery. When the time comes, after the crisis has passed, we will put these emergency tools back in the toolbox.
The stock market has rebounded sharply from the lows of the coronavirus sell-off in late March, with the Nasdaq closing above 10,000 for the first time ever on Wednesday, although the market has pulled back significantly today. With us now with more on the Federal Reserve's meeting and the latest with the economy and the financial markets is Stephen Skanke. Stephen, the Fed has been keeping short-term rates near zero for a while now. Has that policy been successful?
It certainly has. And as we've seen the impact of the Fed with what it's done with keeping interest rates near zero, its massive bond buying, and now the beginning of the rollout of their emergency credit facilities, they've largely mitigated a lot of the economic damage that might have existed and might have occurred had it not been for their smoothing credit markets and keeping liquidity abundant.
Doesn't seem to lead to a quick, strong recovery. What's your outlook for the economy? Talk about that.
The outlook for the economy is largely dependent on what happens with containment of coronavirus. And by containment, I mean vaccines, therapeutics, immunities that are developed. Because at the end of the day, we can reopen the economy fully, but if consumers and workers, our labor force, aren't confident and don't feel secure in going back to their places of employment or out to shop in the places that are dependent on them being there, the economy won't rebound. So what happens in that respect is critical. So when we see that now in 12 states there's an increase in coronavirus-related hospitalizations, and those states include our two largest, California and Texas, that's actually quite worrisome for what happens with consumer spending and return to the workforce.
Stocks have fallen today, but they've been going almost straight up for a couple of months. Have stock prices gotten unrealistically high?
Well, there's certainly been a good deal of exuberance. For the market to be up from March 23, almost 45%, before it started to take a breather yesterday in anticipation, and then after the Fed announcements, and then again today with markets just a little bit ago down almost 5 or 5.5% for the day. That's not unexpected, because as you say, the rise had truly been meteoric. So it's never a bad thing for there to be some breathing space. There's also been a lot of new economic news that the markets need to get their head around. While the Fed's action had been very positive, they did reintroduce their economic forecasts yesterday. And so for them to say that they see unemployment at 9.3% at the end of the year and GDP growth being negative 6.5% for the year, figuring out just exactly what that means and the impact that that has on corporate earnings and the likely impact on stock prices just takes a little time to figure out. And while they're trying to figure it out, they're certainly looking for some safety and taking some money out of the market.
And quickly, Stephen, the government has spent trillions to prop up the economy. Are we going to see higher taxes at some point to pay for all this? And what would that do for the economy?
Well, that's actually a very good question as to how they're going to pay for it. Right now, the plan is just to borrow the money to pay for it and not to be raising taxes. Raising taxes constricts economic growth. So if we can get to a sustained rate of economic growth in the 2.5 to 3% rate after 2021 and 2022, that's certainly a time to be looking at how we can reduce some of our debt. At the end of the day, and even just looking back at the Eisenhower years, the huge, massive post-World War II debt of the United States was largely paid off by growing the economy. And so that's the number one priority, to get people back to work and economic growth moving along at a pre-COVID rate, and then see what measures we have available to start reducing some of that debt.
All right, Stephen Skanke, the Chief Economic Advisor for Keel Point. Thank you, sir, for your time and your insights.
Thank you.
Coming up, why some doctors say the pandemic lockdowns have caused more harm than good. But before we go to break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
You're watching CBN NewsWatch. A growing number of doctors are trying to show why they believe lockdowns and shutdowns are doing more harm than the coronavirus itself. As Paul Strand reports, some 1,200 are joining together to warn of a much higher death rate due to this overwhelming and possibly unfounded fear.
SecondOpinionProject.com is the gathering place where doctors are presenting their case for why the nation's lockdown to fight coronavirus has been a medical disaster.
We're looking at an increase in tens or hundreds of thousands of just suicides alone from the increased unemployment.
Cases of depression or drug abuse that were in check have gotten worse. We're seeing that all over the country, every town, every city.
The morbidity and mortality from joblessness and from mental health crises and relapse and suicides, homicides, shootings, all these things are just going to continue to get worse.
They say of coronavirus,
the message has been disseminated that this is some terrible infection that is a killer, that everybody is at risk of dying.
10 times as many people die from other things on any given day.
But we know that 99.7% of people that get infected with COVID survive.
The risk of death in children from flu, seasonal flu, is 20 to 30 times higher than that of the coronavirus. And yet we have never closed schools. We have never asked children or teachers to wear masks. In my opinion, this is child abuse. I am absolutely appalled, and I think it makes no scientific or rational sense whatsoever.
We cannot lock up our young generation in the house for the next 12 or 18 months while we're waiting for a vaccine.
First of all, there has never been a successful coronavirus vaccine. Never.
The kids need to go back to school. They need to go back to school for the main reason that they need that social interaction, and there's nothing that can replace a childhood for a child.
We're talking about not only social isolation, depression, boredom, but we're also talking about a strategic loss in education. If you take a look at what happened in Boston and some of the other places where they had online schooling, 20, 30, 40% of students didn't ever log in.
What is driving the current response to this coronavirus is pure and unadulterated hysteria. This is actually a full-on societal anomaly that has infected virtually everyone in the country to some degree. We have to understand that it's nonsense. Otherwise, we're going to be locked into that in perpetuity.
It seems people think it's more contagious than it is. People who catch this virus are in close proximity for several minutes, possibly even an hour or two with the infected person.
When you're outside and the sun is shining, the chances of spreading this disease are practically zero. If this virus gets hit by sunlight, it dies in a second.
This virus is very unlikely to spread outside, so it doesn't make any sense that parks and beaches are closed at this point.
Some 1,200 doctors are involved in the Second Opinion Project. Many tell of people who died because they were too scared to go to the hospital.
He declined because he was afraid he would catch the virus. He basically waited to the last minute. 911 was called, EMS showed up, and he, arrested right there, had CPR and didn't make it.
And as he got weaker and weaker, they didn't know what to do because they were getting constant bombardment from the news saying, stay home, don't go to the hospital, you're going to get COVID. We coded him for about 30 minutes, and he passed away.
I've had several patients who were worried about going to the emergency department when they clearly needed to go.
I still have several patients that are afraid to come to my office. They're afraid they're going to catch it on the street, walking down the road, and that's just not the case.
Even Dr. Fauci has warned lockdowns could cause irreparable damage.
This is not a money for lives situation. This is a lives for lives situation.
The consequences in terms of mental health for many of my patients and many people throughout this country are devastating, and it's going to get worse the longer that we keep our economy locked down.
You need to start rising up and telling these officials, look, we respect you, but you're not a doctor. And in this country, we have rights. All our people in this country, we're endowed by a creator. We have rights and civil liberties, and we get to choose what we want to do, not have government dictate medical health care issues on us.
These doctors, representing more than 21,000 years of practice, have even written to the White House to warn of the millions of casualties to come because of the lockdowns. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Democrats and Republicans are sounding the alarm about possible vote fraud after primary election irregularities this week in Georgia. Voting machine malfunctions, provisional ballot shortages, missing and late arriving absentee ballots are of concern. Could this be a harbinger for the upcoming presidential election? On this week's episode of The Global Lane, Republican National Committee co-chair Tommy Hicks Jr. says the RNC is spending $20 million nationwide to protect election integrity.
You know, we're very focused on protecting your vote, and we're going to spend $20 million litigating to make sure that these frivolous lawsuits that are taking place on the other side don't cancel out the legal votes of the American people. And we've launched a website, protectthevote.com, that goes through state by state exactly what we're doing to make sure that your vote counts.
Well, you're talking about these lawsuits. Now, mail-in balloting. Many Republicans oppose it. Democrats support it. Why is that, and what do you think will happen with this push by several states to do it? I mean, some states like Colorado already do it.
Well, it's ripe for fraud, and what they want to do is they want to mail ballots, live ballots, to all registered voters, not active. So, for instance, in San Diego recently, we had 500,000 inactive voters kicked off the voter file. And these are people who have moved or have died. And still, you have 117% of the residents of San Diego County, California, as registered voters. So you know at least 17% of those votes are fraud. So we can't let that happen. Mail-in voting is ripe for fraud.
And I think they're not really purging these rules, are they? I mean, maybe that's an effort that should be done.
Yeah, absolutely. People who've moved to other states, people who have died should not be able to vote.
Well, and that's where voter ID laws come in, I guess. On another issue of concern for the GOP, it seems that North Carolina has now lost the Republican convention this summer, Tommy, because of its failure to reopen from the COVID-19 shutdown. Now, I know Republican Party officials reportedly visited Jacksonville this week, trying to figure out if that city has enough hotel rooms for a convention. Why Jacksonville? And I'm sure Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would be quite welcoming.
You know, lots of people would be very welcoming, and lots of cities have stepped up to try to welcome this celebration. It's really unfortunate that the governor, Democrat governor of North Carolina, would not allow this to take place the way it should be. It's really bad for the businesses of downtown Charlotte. It would have been a $250 million shot in the arm at a very critical time as we reopen our economy. And we had been working for over a year, well over a year, with people on the ground for over a year working for that convention. And you know what? We've got a great team, and wherever it ends up being, wherever the celebration ends up being, we're going to be able to pull it off and do a great job celebrating.
Just be careful with Florida. Hurricane season in August. Recent polls show the president may face an uphill battle in the race against Joe Biden. We know that social media may be one key in winning the election. Attorney General Barr has once again expressed concern about social media platforms and their censorship. What impact could social media censorship have on the president's campaign and those of conservative candidates this fall?
Well, you know, it's very important. I mean, censorship is a big deal, especially when you talk about a president who has the ability to connect directly with so many tens of millions of Americans through his Twitter, Facebook, and other accounts. And this is a president who likes to talk directly to the American people. He likes to be out there having rallies, talking directly through the crisis, talking directly to the American people. And I think it's important that they not censor him or anybody for that matter.
And finally, how do you think the COVID-19 shutdowns followed by the George Floyd protests and riots will affect the electability of this president? He's taken a lot of criticism on both.
Well, you know what? The transition back into greatness has begun. Last week, we had a great jobs report. 2.5 million jobs were created. The experts expected us to lose 8.5 million. So we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the economic recovery. And we know this president built it once. He's the right president to build it again. And I think you're also seeing, you know, the president was very quick to condemn what happened to George Floyd and to seek justice for his family. But he was also quick to condemn the riots that were taking place. There's a big difference between riots and protests. And I think when he declared Antifa a terrorist organization, that was a really good thing, and the violence quickly stopped.
Not to mention COVID-19.
Yeah, it stopped too, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate you, Tommy. Thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
You can watch more of The Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern right here on the CBN News Channel. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the break.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Country superstar Carrie Underwood and her husband Mike Fisher are continuing to share their journey with God in a 4-part short series called Mike and Carrie, God and Country. After opening up last week about their multiple miscarriages, this week the couple is sharing stories about how they teach their 2 sons unconditional love through faith in God.
A lot of times I feel like because we have an open dialogue, about God. He just says things. Did you know? I have to love God even more than you, Mommy. I love God so much. I feel like he means it, I feel like things are, like I said, just rattling around in there, and you're like, what do you sit around thinking about all day? I feel like it's such a normal part of our life, and that's what I love,
I think the greatest fear for me would be having a child that didn't have a real relationship with Jesus. I want my sons to see me and be like, this is real. This isn't just what he's saying. This is like not an informed faith. This is like a transformed faith, and my dad is different, and don't know that I'm there. I don't know that I'll ever, but that's the goal.
It's wonderful here. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Have a great day.